Hello and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. I'm Steve Ryder in the company of Steve Mellish and Sam Turner to have a look back at the Qatar Goodwood Festival, a look back at a few races from this weekend, including that performance of Diego Velázquez. We'll have a look forward to the Hungerford Stakes, and I'll also be picking their brains on their techniques of best finding a winner. Steve, we had you on a few months ago for the Derby preview. Have you been since?
Been good, yeah. Been having a good time. Sort of watching plenty of races, playing plenty of golf, looking after a grandson. It's been good actually. It's been a really enjoyable couple of months.
Excellent.
Back to work.
Sounds a hard life, doesn't it?
Yeah. All changed today, of course.
Yeah.
Back to the club.
You've done well to play a bit of golf for the weather we've had the last 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm free most days, so I can make late decisions, Sam.
Very good, very good. All good, Steve. Here, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, perfect. We'll then go on to racing recap. So obviously without a show last week, I think it's worth touching back on 4 of the key races from the Qatar Goodwood Festival. The Lennox Stakes was the first one to have a look at. Kinross won, I'd say cosily, under Frankie Dettori, kind of always looked in control over Isaac Shelby. Steve, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought the right 2 horses fought it out. I think Isaac Shelby, 7 furlongs, soft ground, probably ideal. I thought he travelled, I thought he ran his race. I think Kinross, who had been, I thought he'd just been bubbling under and compared with last year's form in his first 2 runs. I thought was back to pretty near his best, and he did it, as you say, a shade cosily. But I think he beat a pretty good horse as well.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. It's a bit of a shame Isaac Shelby hasn't been confirmed for the Hungerford Stakes at the weekend. I thought that might have suited him, but yeah, no, it looked a relatively strong piece of form, didn't it, Sam?
Yeah, I think that obviously the cream rose to the top. I thought it was a really smart ride from Sean Levy as well. I thought a good race riding ride. Did everything that he could possibly do to keep Frankie Dettori locked away. Obviously the cutaway helped Frankie dive for the inside and managed to get to the run, and as you say, won a touch snugly. Better from Marban as well. He picked up some pieces back in third. Spoke to Charlie Fellows afterwards. I think he's keen to keep him away from Ascot. He couldn't understand why he ran so badly in the Commonwealth Cup, possibly a little bit too aggressively ridden on the wing, but I don't think he'll be going back to Ascot anytime soon. But he maintains that there's a nice race in him over 7 this year. Yeah,
and Kinross, the logical place to go would be the Foray and the Champion Sprint at the end of the year, kind of tread the same course.
Why not?
Perhaps end up in America.
Yeah, he's identical. Again, he ran really well in the Breeders' Cup last.
He did.
A sharp mile, I think he gets. So yeah, absolutely. I think the programme always picks itself, really.
Yeah, he's only had 3 races this year, hasn't he? He's been lightly campaigned, very cleverly campaigned, really for the back end, which is when he thrives.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Sam, you touched on the rides there. We've got to talk about the ride in the Goodwood Cup. Quick Thorn, obviously an inspired Tom Marquand ride. They obviously had kind of repeating tactics from the Lonsdale Cup last year.
Yeah, he's a dangerous horse when you allow him to get free on the lead, isn't he? He has got those performances in him as well. I suppose he was a massive price in hindsight, wasn't he? When you look at what he did to Coltrane up at York, destroyed him that day. It was a tremendous front-running ride, and they gave him a lot of rope. I think I was watching it with Lydia through on the afternoon, and she was willing him home because I think she liked to stuff it up 1 or 2 of those in behind that were sleeping. And Marquand was brilliant from the front all week, wasn't he?
He was. I think he's an absolute top jockey, isn't he? I think Quick Thorn's one of those. He's a really hard horse, I think, to get a complete handle on, because both the Lonsdale last year and this, all of that is true. That he definitely not nicked it, but he was given a ridiculous advantage by the other riders in both cases. But in neither case was he coming back at all at the finish. And I think he is a very, very talented horse. Unreliable, maybe that's the wrong word, but hard to predict. I was very surprised. I thought after he won the Lonsdale last year, I thought, I'd back him almost against anything, Kyprios and all those things, and he never went a yard in 2 races in France. No. And beginning of this year, he won a race at York, but he's been nothing like the horse who won the Lonsdale. And then suddenly last week, it's like the switch had been turned on again. I find him really hard to predict, but I don't want to fall into the trap of saying he was completely flattered, because I think he's very good when he gets everything right, and he got everything right that week.
Just listening to 1 or 2 quotes from Connections afterwards, it's a bit of a misnomer that he wants soft ground as well. I think it was very, very soft and long shot, and they just said that they were walking that day, and that was the reason why he ran so poorly last autumn. So I think just that bit of digging the ground is absolutely perfect for him, but he doesn't want it any deeper than that.
Yeah.
No, looking forward, he's 9-2 for the Lonsdale Cup with Bet365 this year. At that sort of price, he wouldn't be a sort of each way. But he's win only, isn't he? Even at sort of 10-1 plus, he seems to either on a going day or not.
Yeah, he'll change the tactic. I mean, he won't get the same, for sure they won't give him the same rope. But that could be dangerous in its own right if you sit too close to him, because I think he goes a fair pace early on. I don't know, I'd say for me, he's one of those horses I'm happy to take a back step, and if he's running, don't get involved. But I can't really put a handle on exactly what I think he is. Very talented, but not particularly easy to predict.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Courage Mon Ami? Obviously, won the Ascot Gold Cup, was a little bit below form here. Bookmakers, Bet365, still having favourite for the Lonsdale Cup, 7-2 favourite. So they're willing to forgive him that effort.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's lightly raced, and I don't know. I know Frankie was trying to say Goodwood might have been to blame, but he did with his. I don't know. I don't think the stayers are with Kiprios not being around. I don't think the stayers are a particularly vintage crop, really. So maybe he certainly could bounce back, but why he ran like he did, I don't know. He was in trouble a long way. I know he's in the pack, but there was never a moment that you thought he was going to get involved. So I thought it was disappointing.
I felt a little sorry for Coltrane because he was the one that led the peloton, and I don't think that's always a great position to be in. In those sort of races, they're all just sitting behind you, and he was travelling as well as anything, sort of sweeping down, and then he had to be the one to try and breach the gap.
I agree with that.
It broke him in the end, and Emily Dickinson plugged on for second.
Yeah, as she does. But I agree. I think Coltrane, there's an excuse. I don't know what the excuse was for Courage Mon Ami. He looked like he was the progressive stayer who might take hold of that division, but he's got it to prove, I think, after that run.
The one or two Gosdens that perhaps weren't running great at that stage as well.
Yeah. And he had the Wheelback winner on the Saturday of the Ebor favourite.
The back end of the week was a bit more of a positive, but leading up into Goodwood.
Yeah, maybe it's that. I just think there's a little question mark. He looked very progressive till then. Yeah. It was a backward step. And the ground wasn't that bad the first day.
No, maybe that Ascot Gold Cup took a fair bit out of him and the likes of Coltrane and left their mark a bit.
Maybe.
Yeah. Star of the show was arguably Paddington, made it 6 from 6 this season. Just keeps progressing. Obviously hard fought victory. Sam, I know you were a fan of Factor Cheval, tipped him without the favourite, so you got your money there.
Yeah.
It looked as if he might be closing it down.
Where I was getting quite excited, having had a bit on at 20. But yeah, I mean, Paddington was always in control, really. He's just proving to be an indomitable force this year, isn't he? 6 from 6 now, left behind those sort of early races where we questioned quite how good he could be when he was winning handicaps around the Curragh and stuff like that, and not really clocking great speed figures. And then obviously the St James's Palace, he really announced his arrival, and he's thrived ever since. He puts weight on for his races. Incredible. But he's just proved to be the most sort of versatile, robust, dominant 3-year-old that we've seen for a while, I think. Yeah,
he's got a fantastic attitude to go with his ability. He finds, doesn't he? He's not a horse you're worried when he comes off the bridle, because he really found. He had to get serious for, I don't know, a furlong or so in Sussex. At the line, he was absolutely rampant and banging top. I think the Jumby, I know we're not talking about that, but I think that promises to be a really, really interesting race. I really do. So we'll find out. It'll be another test of it. I think a mile and a quarter might be his trip, but I think he's meeting some pretty decent opposition. And you wonder, will he keep coming back from these races? Ryan Moore seems to think he will. He seems to think and maybe he's right. But he's had 6 races this year, which is quite a lot for a 3-year-old.
We've already had a boost out of the race, haven't we? With Inspiral, who would touch on. How do they bet 365 on the Juddmonte? So
Juddmonte, Paddington is shortened, possibly on the back of Inspiral's obviously victory yesterday. So Paddington 6-5, Mostadaf, who will be partnered by Frankie Dettori, second favourite at 7-2, Desert Crown 5-1, who at this point can't be an anti-post bet, can he, until he's actually down at the start. King of Steel, I think he's intended to go there, dropping trip at 7-1, Alflela 12-1, August Rodin. Can't believe he's going to end up there 14-1. So
I'm a fan of Mostadaf. I did think I thought he was really good last time. I think if he rides in the same form, I think it'd be the stiffest task personally that Paddington so far had. We'll see. you know, it's often a great race, the International. And if they both turn up in form, it'll be one of the races of the year, I think.
I don't think Frankie's ever won a Group 1 for Shadwell, has he?
Has he not?
I'm not sure he's won it.
He won the Greenham, didn't he, on a few years ago?
But he hasn't worn those colours very often at all, has he?
Okay.
Because they're very loyal to their band of riders normally, and obviously one's injured and the other one's suspended, so they've had to reach for the best. But it'd just be typical, wouldn't it, of him after the weekend he enjoyed in France to go and land the big one at York as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. We billed the Nassau Stakes as the race of the meeting, but it didn't quite happen that way. It ended up being slowly ran, a bit of a mess. Aurelien Lemaitre probably would like it again on Blue Rose Sen. Steve, what were your kind of thoughts on it?
I thought the first two were given good rides, and the rest tactically got it wrong that day. Nassau was way out of her ground, I beg your pardon, and the French horse found, I mean, it's easy from the stands, but it's predictable from about 3.5 out what was going to happen. Yeah. And I thought that, we'll touch on Jim Crowley probably with Aasy later, but I think he's riding absolutely fantastic, almost the best of his career.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think he's developed little things which I never associated with him before. But anyway, he was perfect that day tactically. He got it absolutely spot on. Would he beat him again? I don't know. On the day, I thought they were giving the best ride the first two.
Yeah, Alhusen, kind of confirmed form with Nassau from Newcastle based on the betting. It obviously wasn't form that you thought might stack up, or at least punters and bookmakers didn't think so.
No, I mean, I suppose the value seekers probably did, and they took a chance. Yeah. I think fair play to Shadwell as well. I mean, we've talked about it and touched on this show a little bit, but they just seem to, they keep these horses in training, Hookums and all these sort of horses, Allison, and they just seem to thrive and thrive and thrive, and they've done a brilliant job, and their trainers do a brilliant job for them as well, you know, whether it be Varian, Burrows, whoever. Yeah. They've just always seem to uncover one, don't they? You know, a Mosh to Daff or whatever it might be. Yeah. And they compete, even though they've trimmed down their operation quite significantly in recent years, following the sad passing of Hamdan Al Maktoum, they still managed to uncover some gems.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
there's some eyebrows raised when that obviously was going to be announced that they were going to be cutting back, but they have really had the cream from the crop, haven't they? And kept that in, and it has really worked. That,
I mean, they could have easily shuffled Hookham off to stud, couldn't they?
Yeah.
But they stayed patient.
Yeah,
fair play to the Hills boys and Angus Gold and all the think tank around those horses. They do a brilliant job with them.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, it could easily be a horse at the end before he career we were putting him down as a pretty good horse. But he's gone up a gear this year. And he's, there was no fluke at all. I didn't think in the King George.
And I would take on board your point about Jim Crowley. I think he's I mean, you obviously have your Ryan Moores of this world and those top level Frankie Dettori, but like Jim's not far behind him, is he? He's only a pound behind him.
Yeah. I think a couple of times, I know we are going to talk about Aasy later, but a couple of times this year he's done things which I'm wrong, but I don't really associate with Jim Crowley. Rides that I don't associate. I think it's a real shame that he's out for 3 weeks, because I think he's in the absolute peak of his career.
Yeah, it's a shame for him, really.
It is.
But he showed his mental strength, didn't he, by going and then winning a big race that week. After news of the ban broke, and that's just typical of him, really.
Yeah. Definitely. Sam, I'll come to you first. For any other performances, obviously Goodwood, we had lots of 2-year-old races, lots of handicaps. Anything they don't have to have won, just something for our viewers and listeners to then be able to put in the
There was one on the Friday which I was quite taken with. I think it was serried ranks. I don't know, it was a winner, which is rather boring. But the way that he won the nursery in the King's colours, big robust 2-year-old as well. I thought Goodwood wouldn't necessarily suit him. But once he got himself organised, and the time wasn't brilliant, but he coped really well with the soft ground. I think he's just the type that could take a good stiff rise up in class on a more orthodox track. I think with Rafe Beckett's horse in good form at the moment.
Yeah, they really are.
With us, not seeing any sight to the end of the rain, I think he could have a decent autumn. Serried ranks.
Yeah.
So okay, where it'll go, I don't know, but a horse I think is in danger of being slightly underrated, what she did, for the fact it was a very good ride again. But for a while I've had Sumo Sam on my mind as a horse who was better than she was showing. I think basically she is a stayer, a real stayer as well. And I think they've been running over 1.25 miles and 1.5 miles. And I thought mile in the Lily Langtree, Tom Marquand went off in front, set a real good pace for the conditions. Everything was beat from miles out. And I know horses haven't run their race. but I thought you saw her in her true light. I think she is a dyed-in-the-wall stayer. I think she could win in better company, given conditions, and I think she sort of should be ignored when meeting a few more, flasher profile horses, if you like. I think she's pretty good, and I think that was almost her first opportunity to show her full range of ability.
Yeah, I was working Racing TV Day with Lydia, Racing TV Guineas Day with Lydia, and saw her running the Pretty Polly. And
She ran well.
I think physically I really liked her as a model. To be honest, she finished second to Running Line and got run over a little bit that day, but it was only a second ever run. Yeah. She bounced from a maiden into that race. I thought it was a really good effort.
Yeah, she had a few disappointments since then, but she had a few odd, I think I don't think she ran in the right races, basically.
No.
She's not quick, but I think she is a real, she's got a very good stay in racing, I think, when she gets things right. I could see her running well in a soft ground champion stake, like, outrunning her pride. Not saying she'll win, but I think she would run her race.
Yeah,
they got really
Yorkshire Oaks type next
that
year.
That sort of thing. Yeah. I think she's okay anyway.
Yeah, I think there'll be plenty willing to discount that run based on 3 wins run and everything like that.
Absolutely.
So.
What about you, Robin Goodfellow? You got anything?
No.
Oh, there we go.
That's the most sensible answer of the three of us.
That brought an end to that conversation.
Yeah.
No, there were a few. It seems like a long time ago.
Yeah,
it does.
No, there's a few from this week that I'll touch on in.
Okay.
And I'll highlight a couple at that point.
Cool.
But no, nothing from Goodwood for me to add into the tracker.
He wasn't Robin Goodfellow then, he didn't care.
No.
He does now, he's had to have a good look now. Now his neck's on the line, his picture's in the paper.
There you go.
That's gone on a few dartboards, that picture, Steve, I tell you.
Was it on yours?
Big boots to follow.
It's on mine, yeah.
Big boots to follow though, as well.
I don't know about that.
Big shoes to fill, and I've just failed at the first hurdle. Steve, you touched on the ride on Aasy.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the Rose of Lancaster Stakes. I just thought it was an absolute peach.
It was a peach. That's the ride I mean. I'm wrong. I'm not trying to say he hasn't had that in his locker, but it was a ride where I think Aasy's has been a test for all the connections, because the ability's been obviously been there for a while, and I'm sure that he's been William Hacker's probably been pulling his hair out sometime, and I think you've learned. I think the horse has got to be smuggled into it. I think the horse needs to be interested and needs to find a bit of trouble. Yeah. And that's not a ride I'd always associated Jim Crowley with. I always associated with doing the right thing, producing horses at the right time.
Fourth.
Yeah, which is how you should ride most horses, don't get me wrong. But I thought here and at Newbury, I think he's almost looked to find trouble. And I thought it was a superb ride on Saturday.
I think the drop back to 10 has helped as well. Because he's got that bit of toe, as you saw at the end of the Rose of Lancaster.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think he's added that patience and that, almost a Jamie Spencer-esque ride.
It was.
Two of them, weren't they?
It was.
Mostradaf being the same at Royal Ascot. We just sat out, let them all get on with it, and I'm just going to come and pick you up. You've got to have the horse to do that, obviously. Yeah. But I do think he's, like you say, he's probably added another string to his bow the last couple of years. And that's probably confidence from riding good quality horses.
I'm sure it's confidence. I'm sure it is, and confidence of the people who he's riding for, who presumably tell him that this is what you're no worries if it goes wrong, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I just thought he was, he's the best horse at Aasy, but I thought it was a beautiful ride.
It was.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I've seen some quotes from sort of Owen Burrows. I don't have to give Jim instructions. He just does exactly what he wants, and to have the confidence then be able to do that from connections is a huge thing.
Yeah, it is. You got, a lot of top level sports between the ears, isn't the 6 inches between the ears.
Absolutely.
A lot of them have got the ability. It's been able to bounce back from reversals and disappointments and defeats, park those, and then go out and that's what makes the elite. The Dettoris, the McCoys. They just go out.
In all sports, I think that's true. I really think it's true. Yeah.
Agreed. You see it in golf, don't you, all the time? You see a Tyrrell Hatton who gets wound up, if he misses a short one, and that affects the rest of the round, and then you see other lads that just can park it and just go and play.
Lucas Gover won last night, having won the week before, like everything suddenly clicked his mind, he believes in himself.
Mad, isn't it?
It's his mind, but it's, as you say, it's between the ears.
Yeah.
Not a question of ability.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Just as long as it doesn't go too far, like Anthony Joshua, I think, and is carrying the heavyweight division.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he has got big shoulders, to be fair.
One of the performances that I was really impressed with was Fallen Angel winning the Sweet Solera Stakes. Really impressive at the finish, won by 3 lengths, now around a 20-1 shot for the 1,000 guineas with Bet365 next year. Has an entry for the Moyglare Stud Stakes if Connections decide to go that route. I was really taken with her. Sam, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I paid a handsome compliment to the Ollie Sangster horse that beat her at Sandown.
Yeah.
she looks like she wants a mile.
Shawari, yeah.
Big horse for Ollie this year. The fact that he's managed to uncover a sort of a listed pattern horse in his first year of training is amazing. But Fallen Angel looks for me like she got a mile standing on her head. She's bred to, and she was coming back at Sandown, and the thing I like about it, she's very uncomplicated. She travels well in the races. She lengthens. All right, she might not have that instant acceleration and burst of speed as such, but she hits the line strongly, and I think a race like the Fillies Mile would be absolutely perfect for her.
I agree. It'd be interesting to hear if she meets Shawari again, because who knows? I thought Soprano absolutely ran her race on Saturday. I think she likes decent-ish ground, and I thought that really suited her, and I thought the way that Fallen Angel dealt with her. But again, as Sam said, further on out, I thought this might be an interesting race. And at the line, she's really run through it. And yeah, a mile was going to be no problem. She's certainly one of the better 2-year-old fillies we've seen for sure. She's fully entitled to throw her hat into a proper group.
Would you like to see the runner-up come back to 6 for something like the Cheveley Park?
Yeah, probably would be her best. I just think she's just going to be short, isn't she? She's really a nice horse, but I'm not sure she's quite.
No.
I don't think she'd win a Cheveley Park, for example. I think she'd run well again.
Yeah.
I just think she's probably not quite. Thought there was a difference at the finish, but she's good.
Probably why she's been stepped up to 7 for races like that to try and nick her.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say it was a weak Group 3, but it wasn't chock full of depth, was it? There was no Irish runners.
I agree, absolutely.
No, it's rare that you see Danny Tudhope. I watched the interview afterwards. He was really impressed with her, and kind of during the debrief with Connections. You don't often see him that positive around a horse. He really liked her.
Yeah, he's pretty pragmatic, isn't he, Danny? He didn't get too carried away.
Yeah.
Keeneland Phoenix Stakes next. Buccanero Forte followed up his Railway Stakes victory with an impressive 4-length victory. I couldn't believe it looking back that it ended up being 4 lengths. Just carried on going at the finish. Step up to 7 furlongs to suit. Next time in the National Stakes, possibly. With Bet365 cut into 8-1, joint the second favourite for the 2,000 guineas next season. I wouldn't be in a rush to take that, but I was impressed with this.
Yeah, I think she's quite speedily bred in terms of. I'm not sure. I think 7 might be her trip. We'll see. I think it's probably. I think barring City of Troy, it's probably as good a 2-year-old performance as we've seen this year. So I've got nothing against the performance. I think I've got in my own mind about running to about 117, 118, which is a good figure. I just didn't think. I'm not sure about mile. Not sure. I thought 7 furlongs is perfect. Whereas I feel City of Troy is a really top 2-year-old, really top 2-year-old, and one of the better ones we've seen in recent years, I think. So we'll see. So talking about the 2,000 guineas, I'd be very much in favour of the City of Troy camp myself.
Yeah, I think it was a landmark win, wasn't it, for Ammo Racing though?
Yeah,
Kevin stopped.
absolutely.
They've had a really good season.
Yeah,
they just needed that Group 1 to cement that relationship, I think.
Definitely.
The fact that Kevin's delivered again, we've talked about it a fair bit on the podcast, really, how well he's done this year, how well he's coped with the pressure of the job. He's been pretty seamless in most races. I can't really remember him making a rick, if I'm honest. And the horses have been good enough to deliver for him as well. You need the ammunition, and he's proved that he's more than capable of delivering for them. And so I think that was a big race and a big performance, really. I mean, it's amazing, this horse. I've got him doing a really good speed figure the first day of the turf season, and I thought, this can't be right. This is a bit strange. 2-year-old like smashing it with this sort of figure so early on, and it's good to see that he's managed to win a Group 1 for Connections.
Yeah, unquestionable. Had an excuse back and forth, lost a shoe, so I wouldn't hang the form around that. Porta Fortuna is rock solid, finished second, so I don't think there's any excuses there at all. No
reason to doubt the form, and best horse won, I think.
The genuine Group 1 performance as well.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of genuine Group 1 performances, Prix Jacques Marois, Inspiral, amazing, bounce back to form. Won this Group 1 for a second year in a row, provided John Gosden and Frankie Dettori with a 4th year in a row. Obviously won at the Palace Pier a couple of years on there as well. I just thought it was an incredible ride from Frankie, an incredible training performance to get her back from appearing to kind of been broken by Paddington in the Sussex Stakes.
Yeah, she probably, in hindsight, she was ridden to beat Paddington, wasn't she? And she tried to grab the favoured rail some way out. Maybe she didn't run a race. And to be fair, as Inspiral's career, she's not always run her race. When she's good, she's very good. And it was a picture perfect ride. He timed it beautifully, rode with a lot of confidence, and she was an emphatic winner from a pretty decent 3-year-old, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a stunning riding performance and obviously good training performance as well, and a brilliant performance from the filly. But to get from stall 1 over to that side of the track and track the pace over there, there's no reason to dismiss the form. Is that, you know, a very good horse in second. Light Infantry always turns up for these gigs, has run another blind, got another 100 grand for connections. I thought Ernesto ran really well over the mile, you know, back over 10. I don't know whether this was a tee-up for something like the Irish champion. He was only just beaten by Luxembourg in that last year, but I thought that was a really good run from him. He was one of the last off the bridle for a horse that just doesn't run over 8 furlongs ever. Few disappointments in behind. Triple Time never seemed to be going. High Royal with the headgear on just never thrived at all. And you know, and 1 or 2 of them were out with the washing from an early pitch. I think it was a strong time, and I think it was a good form.
I was going to say, people shouldn't get carried away with going descriptions in France. It's been a bugbear of mine for about, I don't know, 20 years.
Not just in France.
No, but in particular in France, you don't do 1 minute 36 and change on soft ground. It was not soft ground Saturday. It was not soft ground on Saturday. Whatever you see in the form book, it wasn't. And they have heavy and soft are liberally given out there, and I really do think you've got to check the time sometimes. You know, they're there. Different way of doing it, basically, but the going descriptions don't relate. They're not parallel with ours. No, definitely.
No, good point.
Sam, we've touched on a few times, obviously, on the French 3-year-old form and everything all like that going forward. Big Rock finishing second. I'd arguably say that it boosted the form of Ace Impact.
Yeah, I don't. You know, you look at some of the times that were clocked on Sunday, both on the round track and on the straight, and the fact that this was run, you know, just a second outside standard, meant that they were trapping along, and he did the donkey work. I know it's a bit of a misnomer when we say, you know, did the hard work from the front, because sometimes obviously that can be the place to be, but I think he did cut out a pretty genuine strong pace, and I think that helped Inspiral most definitely, because, you know, she could then sit off that and be produced, and she settled better as well, and she jumped a little bit better from the gates as well. So like Steve says, you know, like Quickthorn, they're a little bit inconsistent, these horses, and we can't always sort of hang our hat on what they're going to produce, but you know, when she gets a nice setup like that, you know, she's pretty great. And look at the drift as well, the market drift. You got some good bang for your buck there, didn't you?
Yeah. No, definitely. It was an action-packed weekend. We obviously had the Shergar Cup on there as well. The ladies' team, fantastic again. Holly Doyle ended up,
it was almost a passing of the baton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From Haley to Safi, and I mean, Holly's obviously well established, but Safi Osborne is becoming.
She had a great year with the Racing League and whatever she's
Chester Cups.
So it's been a big year.
Random Harvest as well. She's with that great association with that filly.
Yeah.
And all that acclaim as well. It's a tough year, isn't it?
Breakthrough year for her, though.
Yeah,
really is a breakthrough year.
Definitely. You're not, you know, from a punter, you're not disappointed if Safi Osborne's on, are you?
Well,
no.
You know, she's a very, very good jockey.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, as a tipster and a better, I would look for her name and Holly Doyle's.
Yeah.
And, you know, they would be positives for me.
I think she's a classic example, a bit like horses. I think when she was an apprentice, I think she had all the skills. She had an equestrian background. She had everything was there. I think what's got better over the last 2 years, and it's natural. I think tactically she's so much more aware than she was, and that's something you learn. It's not something you're born with, and you know, I mean, that's a compliment, not as a criticism. I think you can see that she's developed that side of her game, and that's made a big. She's always had the tools to actually ride. It's the other bit that goes with it, which I think has been such a revelation this year, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think she has added that tactical nous and different ways of riding as well to a you know, and that comes through practice, doesn't it? 100%. Having the volume of rides and, you know, making mistakes, and you know, they're not going to crack this, you know, overnight. These young jockeys, they need to have, you know, experience of various tracks as well. We have so many idiosyncratic tracks that it's very important for them to get practice on all of them.
I don't know, briefly kind of a tangent, but it can work the other way. I think sometimes jockeys can get promoted almost too soon. A really good example, I think Jason Watson's riding very well this year.
Yes.
In hindsight, I think the jumping out of the apprenticeship straight into the job at Roger Charlton, who's a terrific trainer, was almost the wrong time for him. I think he could have done with another year or so.
Well, they don't have that many runners, do they, the Charltons?
No.
You know, they're very select, and they pick and choose their targets. And
absolutely.
Like you say, when you're coming out of the apprentice rank, you want practice. You need to be seen on a racecourse plenty, don't you? And you want to be going around Brighton and Wolverhampton, and all these are, you know, sort of not gaff tracks, but the lower class tracks.
Absolutely.
and picking up your experience, your race riding skills.
Yeah, he's sort of got dirty again this year, if that's the right
Yeah,
phrase.
yeah.
He rode on the all-weather a lot, and I think he's built his confidence up again. Again, I think he's been, I don't know if you agree, but I think he's been good this year.
Yes.
I really do.
Yeah, probably the benefits of his agent as well.
Yeah, it's Chris, isn't it? Still,
Yeah,
is it?
Chris
Yeah,
Dixon,
absolutely.
yeah, and he's here just helping him a little bit as well.
Absolutely, knows his onions. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the Shergar Cup on the whole, obviously, I like it as an event. I think it's a competitive betting heat. You get 8 runners, you get 3 places. So I like it as an event, and the crowd did as well. 25,000 people there. So yeah.
I'm a miserable git, so it doesn't float my boat. But I couldn't agree. All the things I agree with. You're right. 25,000. The racing is. I tell you, I do think, and this is nothing to do with the Shergar Cup. Ascot's a funny place, I think. When you get a bit of rain, and you look at the times on the straight course, and it really not a million miles away from good ground, but finishes they're strung out like washing. Do you not feel like no other track?
Yeah.
I think when rain comes, you do get horses you think like soft ground who run appallingly from whenever. There were 2 or 3 of them at the weekend. So I think it's I think Ascot's a hard place to gauge. The actual finishes were fantastic, and it was a good day. So
I think it's got a good place on the calendar. I think they've worked it out, and it works well.
Yeah.
They've tried to obviously copy the same sort of premise with the Racing League, and that hasn't worked for me. But I think 25,000 tell you that it's a party atmosphere. I think the riders buy into it as well. They enjoy coming over. The fact that it's at Ascot attracts the international contingent. They love it. And I think you get good trainers target, Andrew Balding always has loads of runners.
it's good money, isn't it?
It is good money.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to be targeting. You get 30, 40 grand for winning, a handicap, which would probably be 20 grand elsewhere a week later. So it makes absolute sense. You get competitive racing, and as I say, the jockeys buy into it, and they're more than happy to selfies and autographs, and they meet the public. I think it's it's well marketed.
Okay. Yeah.
No, definitely. One other performance that I just want to note, obviously Diego Velasquez justified an eye-wateringly short price of 2 to 5 on debut, but he's got some talent, won easily by 4 3/4 lengths at the finish, now 10 to 1 second favourite with Bet365 behind stablemate City of Troy for the Derby. Steve, I know obviously from touching on earlier around Guinea's market, you're a fan of City of Troy.
Yeah.
Would you still favour him for the Derby, or would you?
No, I think Diego Velasquez is really bred for middle distances, and I thought he won the performance. It wasn't a particularly strongly run race on Saturday, but he was good, and you could see him learning his trade as he was going along. I thought it was interesting what Aidan was saying afterwards. He's going to look for a winner's race first before putting him in a top up, which I can really see. He looks like experience he needs, but he was good. I think it's Broome and the other horse. A Point Lonsdale, so he's a middle distance horse in the making. And he was good.
Big constitution, hasn't he? Looks a big lad who's going to, his stride pattern take out a fair few metres. The race that Al Riffer and Thunder Moon have won in the past as well, and like Steve says, 90% of the race he looked pretty clueless, and then the last 10% he was really reaching for the ground and looked a racehorse. I'm mightily impressed with him, and also Cherry Blossom as well, which we didn't touch on as much. Yeah,
I must admit, I think she was really good. She won the second one in a time fractionally slower than Buchanan Fruita, I think it was.
Yes.
Anyway, it was a very good time on the day, and I thought she is definitely a pattern class horse. I know the maiden race, where they're going to the quote for the Lowther, she'd be a big player, I think, in a race like that. She's good. She won it without being fully extended, I say, in a really good time.
Yeah, 5 lengths and 5 lengths to winning margin. 0.7 to 2.5 lengths slower than Moss Tucker, the Group 3 sprinter. Those are incredible figures, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Diego Velasquez. Yeah, you won't miss him in the paddock. Big white face, big white socks. He's a lovely looking individual, and like you said, there's a few of these Aidan O'Brien colts that come out, and they do know their job. I think that's a sort of Camelot went straight back into the Racing Post Trophy. August Rodin kind of did the same thing. He looked like he was laying on the job, and that would be a clever way to go for Aidan.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at Doncaster.
No.
By the end of the year, he looks made for that sort of race.
Yeah, absolutely perfect test for him. He's got some ammunition, hasn't he?
Just a bit.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of notes from me. I went to Newmarket on the Friday night, and Mac Duff really took my eye. Well bred out of a half-sister to Kingman, really strong in the market, really strong at the finish. One for Juddmonte looking forward, and then I bumped into Ken Pitterson, and I like the look of Ghostwriter in the paddock for Clive Cox.
He didn't put you off, did he?
No. No. quite the opposite.
Oh right.
I saw him after the race, and yeah, I got the trumpet out after a 9-1 winner, and he's a nice horse going forward. Clive Cox.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah.
Physically, I liked him.
Yeah.
I know wonder Ken was all over him as well. I thought Macduff did well to win. The time was very slow.
Absolutely.
And he sort of hit that flat spot, didn't he, midway or with 2 furlongs to run. But crikey, by the time the line came, he was well on top.
Yeah.
But I was really taken with Ghost Rider out of the 2 of them. I thought he was tremendous.
Yeah, they were good, and they're both very, very promising. I don't think either race was run to suit them. The Seller was a slightly faster time even than the Ghost Rider. So I don't think you saw the full extent of either of them's ability. They're promising horses for sure.
Yeah, some of these Friday sort of Newmarket nights, the cards are pretty dross, but I think we've seen a couple of nice.
They do chuck up a nice maiden.
Yeah, they do.
As we well know.
Yeah, no. Anything else from either of you kind of elsewhere over the weekend to note?
Handicapper, for what it's worth. I thought the horse did a good time, and for whatever reason I found myself being very impressed with a horse called Merlin the Wizard, who won the last race on, was it Saturday?
Yeah.
I thought it was a really good time, and I think it's a horse who, is it the Charltons? I haven't checked. I think it is, isn't it? I think it's a horse who's they've always thought, whoever it is, have always thought it was a bit better than it's so far shown. I thought it was the first time things were, it all clicked. William Buick over him, lovely. I found a bit of trouble actually, and in the end I thought it was one of the more impressive winners of the day in a time relative to the day, which was pretty good. I thought 88 he was here, and I think he's a fair bit better than that. And I don't think the handicapper will kill it because the winning distance wasn't anything excessive. So I've got him in mind for a good ride. I could see him running well down the line in the Cambridgeshire, for example.
Excellent.
So there you go.
One for the tracker then?
Nothing from me. Just a straight back from me, I'm afraid.
Right. You've learned from me from earlier in the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring it on your wisdom.
Down to you now. Yeah. But I did like those 2 maiden winners on Friday night. I thought that going forward, that you imagine they've got to be placed well to go close in pattern races.
Yeah. No, definitely. Excellent. That brings to an end Racing Recap. Right, this week on the show, with the 2 experts sat next to me, I think it's worth trying to get into their minds around techniques to picking winners. There's lots of different ways that we can obviously then do this. Steve, I'm going to come to you first.
Right.
You look through a race card. How would you then approach a race?
I'm a dinosaur, really. I always have. I've done the same thing for years. So how do I approach a race? My working day, if it's not work, is it really? But my day would be, I'd start with 2-3 hours watching. I watch videos endlessly. And I just make my notes from it. So how do I approach a race? I'm led by the horse into the race before I look at it. To be honest, I don't go for any particular sort of race. I have an ongoing list which constantly changes of horses that I'm interested in, and they be what gets me into a race. I then look at the race and see, if I think it's a winnable race. If the horse is doing, I tend to make very sort of definite notes about what I'd like for a horse. Now, it's probably rubbish, but I've definite things about distances and tracks and whatever. If they qualify, that's what gets me into the race.
Do you find it difficult? Because, like, I do something similar, but I've heard people say about having lists of horses, it takes quite a lot of strength of mind, doesn't it? Just because one of your horses qualifies off your tracker, to not then look for it to be the perfect bet in some respects,
probably.
To look at it dispassionately.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're right. I certainly don't back them willy-nilly. No. They have to qualify on everything, and the list is constantly changing, which I'm sure something happens that makes you reflect that what you saw was maybe not what you saw, and you go back and watch it again. I'm fairly ruthless about that. I only have about 5 bets a week, so I do tend to find reasons to not back things, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But then after all that, it's price related, and whether you think you're getting reasonable return for your money for the odds on offer. So that's but the general question about what leads you into a race, it would be the horse first and then the race for me.
Just 2 things for me. How do you log your notes, just as of a practicality? And then secondly, do you gravitate towards certain connections, certain trainers, more than others, do you think?
Probably without meaning to. I mean, I think we all have people we think are good. I have a lot of bets and handicaps, and I have people who have a lot of time for some people who I think give some thought to the placing of their horses where, I'm not going to name names, some that you think maybe it's not as important for. And again, this is probably wrong, but it really suits me. I do everything by hand, and the only reason I do it is I remember it more. I mean, I can do it on a computer and that, but it's different. The fact that it takes a reasonable length of time, I mean, I go through about 3 books every year. And I've got, I like having it written down. It just suits me. And even things like trackers now, I don't use. I know you should. I physically do it myself because I'm scared that the tracker won't pick it up and
you log
stuff
it
like
better,
that.
don't you?
I do. I just think it just, but that's because I'm 60 odd and set in my ways, to be honest. But it's just what I do, really.
Yeah, and you keep all these books. Have you got
I've
them
got
going back for
years,
30, 40 years? Yeah.
Every bet I've ever had going back for yonks, yeah. Some books I don't want to see, but some of them others.
Not made it onto the fire yet.
There is nothing worse than that tracker notification that comes through after a race with a 1 next to it that you haven't then back.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Yeah, the email slipped into the spam box for whatever reason, just because AOL's not playing ball.
As a general rule, I don't know if you're the same, I think that's quite an important thing, I think as a punter, I'm much more offended by having what I consider a bad bet. Maybe after that, I'm then thinking, I wish I hadn't done that. That annoys me much more than missing a winner.
Yeah.
Much more.
Yeah.
I hate having what what I consider to be a bad bet because it's my fault. I don't mind if I've gone through a good reason and decide not to back something wins. Most of the time, actually, I take that pretty well. Really, that doesn't bother me.
I'm a bit the same. If I bet something, probably. I don't do it much now, but at a shorter price than I should do with a rider that I'm not 100 or a trainer I'm not 100% happy with.
Exactly.
I feel a little bit the same, and it feels like you back 2 losers really. It's
a friend of mine said to me once, Sam, which is a good way of saying that. He said, if you've got an excuse, if you've worked out an excuse beforehand why something might get beat, you should never have had the bet. In other words, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not actually sure it wants this ground or this track. You then have a bet and your first reaction was it didn't like the ground or it didn't like the track. Well, who's to blame?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can't blame a rider if the rider's the same person that's next to the race card before the race when you strike your bet.
Exactly.
So you have to accept a certain amount of responsibility.
Yeah. You're much more into times, aren't you, Sam?
Well, that's my starting point, but I think that edge is starting to be eroded now. They're much more commercially available. I think it's a bigger conversation as well when people are looking at races now, sectional times and overall times. I think they're very much more in the workplace as such than they were even 10, 15 years ago. I felt that I had a significant edge in the mid 2000s and somethings and just going into the 2010s, and I think in the last 10 years I think that has sort of dissipated a bit.
You only need to look at a Sadno 10 minutes after the race, everyone's talking around the time that you got.
Everyone was eulogising about it.
Even 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case.
That's true.
No, they'd have just thought it was a good wide margin rip and winner, and nobody would have calculated that against the other times on the card,
Yeah.
Going back to obviously trackers with you, Steve, I think it's really important for viewers and listeners to both be fast to put them in your tracker, but also to take them out of your tracker. Because if you're creating notes on paper, it's quite easy for you to go, right, that's that one done. It's ran over 6 furlongs at Brighton. That's then gone, and you'll forget about it. Whereas if you've got an electronic tracker, every time he then runs afterwards, you'll get that notification. So I do think it is really important to then be able to discard as quickly as you can actually put them in your tracker.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah,
you've got to be very dispassionate, really, and I think that's what experience teaches you a little bit. The more racing you watch, you can't buy that, can you? That experience, and we all still get very enthusiastic about some performances and some horses, and you get led by it, and sometimes it's very difficult. Not to go over the cliff with them. You make excuses after races and say, well, I'm going to stay with that horse, and sometimes on the reverse, we can be very quick to jettison horses for one blip. And the value is often seeing why they've done that, and then next time when there's a 0 next to them or an 8, that's the time to back them, and you're going to get a few points bigger.
And even if a horse was won, I remember a horse called Ectocross. I tipped it a big price handicap debut, won.
I remember it as well. You were trumpeting it all over social media when it won, but it was a good pick. It was Ed Dunlop, 40 to 1 or something. You put it up.
Yeah, 40s into sort of 12s. But he then ran about a week later, and I didn't put him up. And I had quite a lot of people then contact me around, well, he won for you last time. Why haven't you backed it? Well, the conditions had changed. He's gone up in the weights, and it was a completely different line of form. So you've also, even if it wins for you, you don't have to be loyal to those horses.
You've been to the wedding, you don't necessarily want to go to the funeral, do you?
Exactly.
And the reverse as well. If you've missed one that you think you should have put up, then backing it 7 days later when it runs under a penalty just because you didn't back it the week before.
It's the joy of being a punter, not an owner. You don't have to look through things in rose-tinted glasses. You can be, in your own mind, fairly ruthless about what you think. Rightly or wrongly, you get things wrong, don't get me wrong. But, you can get rid of things very quickly.
It's that half volley, fifth stump, you can either choose to hit it through the covers or you can just let it go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The
You
Ashes
don't
would have
have
been,
to bet, do you?
no, the Ashes would have been bit different if Crawley hadn't hit that one before
Yeah.
the first ball.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Right, perfect. Well, I hope you've all kind of appreciated that bit of knowledge from the two guys on the other side. So I certainly have myself. Before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have an ITV racing price promise. They will not be beaten on price for any horse for all UK and Irish races shown on ITV Racing. Full terms and conditions can be found on the website. Right, we'll have a quick look at the action coming on Saturday. The Hungerford Stakes would arguably be the highlight of the UK action. Jumby has been confirmed for the race today, bids to repeat his victory in the race last year. Steve, looking through the early entries, anything that takes your fancy?
Yeah, I don't think it was a vintage renewal last year, if I'm being honest. It's been a terrific horse for the yard. If we have a dry week, which I think it's forecast, I think Sacred will be the nearest I came to an opinion at this time. I think she's very good, and I think she's the ideal type for it. She's basically a 6-7 furlong horse, so she's got the pace, and she runs well at Newbury. Ground is important. She wants decent ground. She was mugged at Ascot by a brilliant Jamie Spencer ride behind, but she ran a great race, proving that in a stiff 6 she's capable of showing her form, but 7 is probably her absolute ideal trip. So I think with conditions, I think she'd run well.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that assessment at all. I think 2 of her career best performances from the top 3 performances have come at Newbury over 7, including this race 2 years ago. That Ascot run, the handicappers feel that was a career best again, or a level career best again. She travels beautifully, she gets on brilliantly with Tom Marquand. You know, if she runs, she's 2 from 2 at Newbury, I think she'll take a bit of beating.
Yeah, excellent. We've also got some good action at the Qatar at the weekend. Futurity Stakes, it looks as if Henry Goodfellow was going to be the chosen from Aidan O'Brien heading there. You've got the Debutante Stakes, the Royal Whip, the Irish St Ledger Trial. So we've got some good action from Ireland. Anything that took your fancy for those?
I haven't seen the decks. I only looked for the I don't know. This Ledger Trial, there's some interesting 3-year-olds who we'll find out a bit about. Will Valiant King run, maybe?
Valiant King, yeah. I think he'll run in the Royal Whip.
Royal Whip, okay.
Possibly.
Elderoff, if it runs in the Ledger Trial, it will be an opportunity for him. I think actually I keep changing my mind about this horse. I think 1 mile 6 is his trip. I didn't think we definitely didn't stay the 2.5 at the Gold Cup. I'm not sure he truly got 2 miles at Goodwood. So he'd have a job. It's not. I'd need to see all the field and see the going and stuff like that. But that was an early thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just in the TR race, I didn't know whether Johannes Brahms was going to run or whether he was running the Jim Crack. I think he's quite well fancied for the Jim Crack, but obviously the Big Ebbs form took a big advertisement from the Windsor Castle. Looks a good heat, and he looks ready for a step up to 6. Whether he'd take his chance in Ireland or not, or they'll hold on for the Jim Crack, I don't know. But he's probably a horse still to be interested in by one of the sires of the moment, in Siuni.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, no, definitely. Excellent. You've got racing here, there, and everywhere on Saturday. Newbury, Newmarket, Doncaster, the Curragh, and a bit over jumps as well. So
a bit of Perth and Market Race, and we've had 2 weeks without the jumps. For those of us who do flat speed figures, it'll be a welcome return for the jumps. I think there was 36 or 37 meetings I did last week.
Wow.
It was quite labour intensive, but I think it's good that we have this 2-week break for the jumps. Although it could probably come forward a bit more till if they could have it when the horses are actually still out. But a lot of these national trainers have their horses back in July and need riders.
Yeah.
And so they wait till the last week in July, first week in August to have the jumps break. June would probably be a better time to have it, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is needed. I know a lot of the jockeys, some of the jockeys don't want it, but I think it does make sense.
Yeah.
From everyone's point of view, I just need a bit of a break. Probably the same with the flat as well. I mean, you could probably do it 2 or 3 weeks without any flat. I know that your weather goes on all the time, but I think sometimes a break's a good thing.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's all very well saying, well, why don't the jockeys just take a holiday? But when you've got commitments and the fear, and they're scared of getting off a horse that could go and win another couple on the all-weather.
Particularly the top jockeys could do it, but the middle doers, if they get hold of a horse, the last thing they want to do is not ride it at Market Racing, because that might be the horse that earns them, Saturday rides. Yeah. So no, I've got utmost sympathy for the jockeys. I think sometimes you've got to make decisions for them, if you know what I mean. So have an absence, I think would be a good thing.
And last question, where are you on the sauna debate? Do you like them or not?
Having them? No, not very much. I've had 3 in my life. I didn't not an experience.
Didn't enjoy any of them?
No. I don't. I'm not even sure about the debate. I suspect the jockeys should have them if they feel it's important to them. But I've not really thought about it, Sam, to be truthful. You?
No. I think it's better to have, if you're going to drive or ride dehydrated, I'd rather it be in a monitored atmosphere or a monitored situation, on track with, you've got professional medical help there. And if they need to lose a pound, I don't, if it was 1 or 2 dissenting voices, I could see it, but it's virtually every jockey who feels that it's the best way to do it. They know their own bodies. And it's, it's all very well saying, well, you shouldn't go and ride a 40-mile-an-hour horse dehydrated, but that's the nature of the beast. It's going to go on whether you like it or not. It's better than them driving up and down the M1
with a heat full blast,
75, 80 mile an hour, whatever. So I think it's better in a monitored, controlled environment.
That whole scenario of it, we get a lot of negative press and bits and pieces on it, but you do need to have that conversation. Like that debate needs to be had, and you either need to give them an allowance back or you need to give them saunas, in my opinion. Because you will always have jockeys that are struggling with weight that you're always going to try and find a way around it. If it's sat in your car as hot as you possibly can be driving to the racecourse, that is not the way to go.
Yeah, there's worse ways to jockeys lose weight and make yourself sick and stuff like that. So I agree. I mean, it makes, in the end, I think the jockeys have got to be the judge of it. It was COVID stopped it, wasn't it?
They got £6 and then they've taken the £6 away.
I mean, their dietary advice is better than ever. Their fitness advice is better than ever. They've got good facilities that they can use wherever to keep their fitness. And most of them know how to manage their weight and manage their bodies. And I think, if rational people like Tom Marquand are coming out and saying that we need them back, then I think that's right.
Definitely. Before we finish, I think it's worth going back on kind of the 2-week break on the jumps, because the jockey championships in both codes is actually really interesting at the moment, because the flat jockey, you said obviously they don't mind around missing big meetings, but you've got really sort of William Buick and Aasy Murphy who are towards the head, both in big jobs, both going for the flat championship, where the jumps jockeys with Sean Bowen, Brian Hughes, I suppose Harry Cobden's kind of going for it this year, but it's a bit of a different shape around it. Sean Bowen, like you said, wouldn't want to miss out on a fair few rides, and he'd be needing that break, I think.
Yeah, I think he's away at the moment. I think a few of them have taken good trips, long destinations, and
definitely wouldn't have done that without that break.
No, exactly. No, they might have had a couple of nights in Magaluf, and that would be the extent of it, wouldn't it? But
it's a longer season as well for the in terms of the championship, isn't it? For the jump jockeys. So you probably can afford to have a time off. I mean, it's very condensed, the flat jockeys. Is it from Guineas Week until October or whatever it is?
I mean, even us, it's not hard work what we do, but that if you've had a break, you come back refreshed. You're right, you might have missed a bit that you need to catch up with, but you do your better work when you're fresh and you're clear-minded.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Right, thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Many thanks to both Sam and Steve for joining me on the show. As always, if you've liked what you've heard or listened on this or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Friends of the show, Tanya Stevenson and Ken Peterson, will be back next week in both myself and Rishi's absence to look ahead to the Ebor Festival at York. So it'll be a good one. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.